Thank you very much, Glenn, for being willing to take some time for us today. I appreciate this.
Oh, the pleasure's mine, Dave. Anytime.
And this is coming on as Resonate, this super catchy, incredible new album from you is arriving. And I mean that. It's very hard for somebody these days to come up with something that, no pun intended, resonates the way that this thing does. But as a longtime fan of yours, you could be Chris Cornell and Soundgarden you're listening to at times, Rage Against the Machine, STP, Alice in Chains, but at the same time, you've got that really classic sound with the organ, brings me back to your Purple days. If you can, explain how and when you came up with this authentic batch of new tunes.
Man, it's, what it is, Dave, is I don't know if you know, but I went to have double knee replacements last Christmas in January, and whilst recovering through February through April, around about when I went to do the Hall of Fame, I was still kind of struggling. I had this time at home to recover with therapists, and I knew I was going to be writing, but I did not know I was going to be writing an album of songs that would be eventually a Glenn solo album. I have not released a solo album for 8 years because I've been busy with the projects. And I just felt, whilst writing this album, which I did not know would be an album, I felt, I think I'm onto something with this. I think I'm onto something with all the songs I'm writing. They were very focused, if you will. They were slightly diverse, and every song is not. I don't repeat myself on this album, as you can see.
Right.
So I wanted to have something that was completely, if you say, in the rock genre, with a lot of swagger, a lot of movement, heavy content lyrically as well as heavy content musically, dense and dark. Again, spiritual, if you don't mind. But I'm also a little bit pissed off on this album as well. I let the real Glenn stand up, if you will. I let myself be free, and it was an overwhelming thing for me. I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm grateful that you were able to come up with something like that because you said something. I was listening to some recent interviews that you've done, and in one of them, you talk about music as a healer, and it's something that we can. And you just mentioned spirituality. And about 3.5 years ago, I lost my mom and then my grandmom in a short period of time, and I have found music to be a tremendously healing force. I know you lost your father this year, I understand.
Yeah, I lost my dad on the same day as the Hall of Fame. So when you've lost someone so close to your family, and look, Dave, I feel for you, and I feel for anybody that's out there that's lost family or pets or anything. But the album for me, Dave, is a very autobiographical record. But when the listener listens to it, because I don't write about fictional subjects, I only write about the human condition and soldiering on, the healing process, if you will, the grieving process when you've lost something or someone. And also, the writer of this album, me, had to learn how to walk again. Not knowing when I had these operations, I would be left as a 14-month-old child trying to learn how to walk. I had to have therapists show me how to. You're walking wrong, Glenn. I said, no, I'm not. Then I see videos. I'm walking like a fool. Yeah, I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to sit. I had to learn how to sit without touching anything. I had to learn how to get out of a chair without, it's like I had to go to Olympic studies for this. So it was quite difficult. But I also got to write this album in this state of mind,
It seems like it really contributed then because it's one of these things, the hooks are gigantic. And, I mean, I don't know where to start. I was way into Long Time Gone and Heavy, but then now Let It Shine. I've got that hook just kind of going over and over in my head. So when I think about the debut single, I guess you would call it Long Time Gone, Red Hot Chili Pepper drummer Chad Smith is on it. It's got the organ, the wah-wah, your distinctive voice, the hooks throughout it.
Yeah.
What is that about? Share a little bit of the story of collaborating with Chad, too.
Well, Chad's been my best friend. Well, we've been good friends for a long time, but he's been my closest friend for the last 13, 14 years. He's been on 5 Glenn albums. I'm godfather to his child. We have kind of an unwritten joke law that everywhere I go to play on an album, he's there with me. And he's been literally everywhere with me in the studio when I'm doing albums, and we're such good friends, and we find time for one another. You know, off stage or off. You know, we both really a couple of givers, me and Chad. So it's always an honor to have him on board, and especially with my band. They'd never met him before, and he came in, and he's such a. We all know how funny Chad is, so it's such a joy to have him in my life, and long may that continue.
Lyrically, can you give any insight into that one?
That song is about coming home. I felt like I was washed out to sea, and I talk about footsteps in the sand, and you know, obviously the second set of footsteps is not mine; it's the great creator, and it's like the album starts off with this really intense. You know, I know what you ought to know. It's heavy, and it's about, you know, healing and growing, and the end of the album is about finding oneself and actually coming home. You know, it really is a sense of a journey. Every single song on this album is a little bit of a mini movie for me. It's the only album I've ever wrote where I wrote everything musically and lyrically. I could have done that before, but this album was the album I just came out that way.
Man, I'll tell you, that song "Heavy" too is just such a catchy bunch of hooks. It's unbelievable that in the year 2016, people are coming out with material like that. Can you talk a little bit about the choice of the instrumentation too? Because what you've got is something that sounds very fresh and contemporary, yet the organ sounds, the production aesthetic. If for someone who loves classic rock and early 70s hard rock, this is going to be such a pleasing experience.
You know, the song "Heavy" itself was written, as all songs were written, in my studio, and of course the verse bounce. It's very Tamala, and when it's into the breakdown, it's just drums and vocal, and then it's the chorus, and it's very vintage rock music. Jag on bow, bag on bow, bag on. It's simple is always the key,
right,
in rock music, and always the key in any kind of music that makes it onto the airwaves. You know, so I wasn't looking to write a radio album, but this is the most radio record I've ever made, because I wanted to keep it simple. So heavy. It's so simple, and I wanted people to understand. You don't have, you can be from China, you can be from Egypt, you can be from Turkey, or I don't care where you're from, you'll know how to sing this song.
Right.
So it's kind of global. I think this song is it's moving some units. I think the pre-orders are pretty strong. So I think we're going to have, look, I have no expectations in life. I've done it all, but I think this record will tick the boxes of a lot of older fans and a lot of new fans.
Yeah, well, that's what I said when I introduced you. There are moments on there, it feels like you're listening to Soundgarden or Rage, but at the same time, it has the aesthetic that can be pleasing for somebody who wants to reflect on their Deep Purple days. And on that note,
yeah.
I was very fortunate to I was blessed to have Graham Bonnet on recently, and Graham said an interesting thing that made me think of this record, because he has a new record too, and he's also kind of like yourself, a singer who's been timeless, has been around for a very long time. And he said something like, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, despite his wide range of musical styles that he loves and embraces, he feels a need to reflect his fans' tastes, essentially, in the style on the new album, because it's somewhat, people kind of expect a certain thing, so you want to try to deliver what they expect. Does that kind of thinking factor at all into how you crafted this new release?
Oh my God, it's really crazy when you say that, because I'm going to tell you the truth. When I make music, how do I say this to you? I don't like corporate people. Let's talk about the corporate people telling me what to do, what color to paint my new car, or unless you're actually singing it with me or writing it with me, don't talk about it. you know, especially in rock music, because rock music is not hip-hop. You know, hip-hop, you know, sells a lot of records, you know, so rock music for me is a genre that, you know, I go out and play, I do this, I do blah, blah, blah. So a lot of my fans have always wanted, I'm very R&B influenced, you know, I'm very much into soul music and big rips, you know, like Tom Morello's a riff merchant, but his background is not metal, but it really isn't. So it's like I wanted this album to be, if you will, a tip of the hat to my fans who maybe waited for this album, you know. And Dave, I have to be ready to make this album. I have to be completely ready to do it. Was I ready to write that song called Flow or that song God of Money? You know, was I ready to take a journey on Long Time Gone? You know, maybe I wasn't last year, but I most certainly am this year.
And I love that you do combine, because I'm a huge funk fan, and so I've always loved that about you, and it's fantastic how you mix that in. And also, yeah, like it's cool that we could riff on that, because Graham's thing is like he loves a lot of, as you know, really far out kinds of things, far from a heavy sound, but yet you have fans, and they've kind of grown accustomed to you, and that's what they kind of like.
Yeah.
And your career, dialing back, it's been a remarkable one. And I've heard you talk about your mom and dad sort of setting the stage for this life of music just in the very inspiration of your name, yeah?
Most certainly. I'm the only child of Bill and Sheila Hughes, named after Glenn Miller. I grew up listening to, you're going to love this story, Frank Sinatra was played in my home 7 days a week. Until I left my home when I was 21. It just so happens that I became friends with Frank Sinatra in 1981. And it just so happens that I got to introduce my parents to Frank. And Frank gave my father some of his clothing and blah, blah. And, you know, it was like, you just never know where it's going to take you. Remember, this is the guy that was all jacked up on blow and Jack Daniels in the 70s, who never would have met Frank Sinatra under those circumstances. But when I started to get my life in order and realized, you know, how things have to change. I'm kind of a guy that always likes to change. Always likes to change. You know, it's simple for me. I got to keep changing. I got to keep thinking differently and keep growing. I'm never going to stop until the end. You know, I'm not an artist that's going to comfortably say to you, "Hey, Dave, I've done it. I've created it. I've done it. I've arrived." No. I'm still working at it. I'm still working, chopping away. You know, I'm going to be chopping away till the very end. I never want to be that comfortable. Never want to be that comfortable. I just want to be able to mix myself around people and watch people and learn. I love to check what else everybody else is doing. So I like to be silent. I like to walk around, let nobody I'm there, and I just want to. That's the kind of person I am, you know. I want to be a student.
It's a beautiful thing. You're such a wonderful guy, Glenn. I can't even believe that's the kind of answer that'll inspire so many people in a lot of different ways. And just the story with, you know, my mom, by the way, that was one of her first concerts was Frank. She worked in radio too, and she even got to go with comp tickets. So it was a great full circle thing in getting to talk to you. Tell the story of how you got to know Frank.
Well, the truth be told, that my best man at my first wedding was Frank Sinatra's valet. And right-hand man, you know, obviously Stillion, you know. So he was my best man, and over the course of 4 or 5 years when I was, you know, he was in my house, and Frank Sinatra lived in Beverly Hills where I used to live, and, you know, I had opportunities to go over and to meet him, and my parents came into town, and you know, that was it, you know. It was like, you just don't dream this shit up when you're young, and it just so happens, you know, you run into people and you meet people when you're ready. So I've learned from so many people. I've learned from, everyone, young people. I've learned from people, homeless people. I've learned from, extremely extravagantly rich people, or about miserable, extremely extravagantly rich people. I've learned so much about what to do and what not to do. Like I said before, I'm 65. I don't want to be 22. I've got a very young heart, as you know, and very stable, but I love what I've been given.
Yeah, it's just, you've got a good attitude. I'm learning a lot just about how to live life in talking to you. And another cat that is mentioned sometimes in your life, who said that you were, I'm paraphrasing, but I think that Stevie Wonder called you his favorite white singer. How did that come about that he ended up being such a fan of yours?
Well, I was taking a pee in the record plant in 1974. We were making a record with Deep Purple, and I was taking a pee in this restroom, and in walks Stevie with his cousin taking him in, and I'm going, oh my God, because he's like my idol,
Right.
Everybody has their idol. So I wait for him to clean up, and I wait outside, and he walks out, and this was the only chance I'm ever going to get to meet him. So I was very, very, very courteous, and he was so responsive to me, as he is with everybody. I know Stevie a long time now, and I asked him if he just give me just a minute. I took him in the studio, and I played him a track I'd just done with Deep Purple, which completely was a Stevie Wonder reference, and he was so sweet and so kind, and then he invited me into his session, and it's not the way Stevie sang to me that night. It's not the way he felt my skin. It's the way he conducts his life with his family, his fans. There he is, this younger guy back then, blind, and what he could see, what I couldn't see, was amazing. What he could see, I wished I could see what he was, seeing. It's just incredible. I've learned so much from that guy and what he's shown for me. Again, I've learned from being able to shut my mouth and watch and listen to greatness, and to see people stumble and get up and run again, and to see people beat the odds. Some people do that, I'll beat the odds, if you will, with addiction and booze and food, So many deadly sins we have. But I think I've got a handle on it now, hopefully.
I'm hoping to. You've been through a lot. There's no question about that, and your resilience is something that is to be noted. You mentioned Purple, and it would be wrong to not get the story, and it's a fascinating one. Not only does Purple connect you to Hawaii, but Purple, the discovery of you by Purple at the Whiskey in L.A. and the long process that was. Tell that story.
They were checking me out. We were playing 4 shows at the Whiskey in 72. Would have been the 4. One night Ian Pace came, and the next night John Lord came. And the next night Lord and Pace came. I'm saying to myself, oh, these guys really love my band. I had no freaking idea. And then 3 months later, Richie came to the Marquee in London. I'm going, oh, here he is again, And then John Lord came to see me again in New York. And then he said, we want you to come and see us play. We're playing Madison Square Garden next week. I said, okay. And then the next day, they asked me to come to a meeting. I had no idea what was going on. I just was so naive. And they asked me if I would like to join as a bass player. I said, excuse me? I said, I love playing bass, but I'm a singer, I said, well, we want you to sing as well. We want you to play bass and sing like some lead vocals. I said, well, okay, there it is, So I get a chance to do something different. Roger Glover was only a bass player, and, so I get to do my thing, which I've been doing ever since, which is a lead singing bass player. So I was really fortunate to have done that.
And you really also got to be part of a unique collaboration, because then the auditioning process for David Coverdale commenced after that. And then you guys end up with a series of dates that could end up bringing you to Cal Jam. It's one of the biggest concert events ever in the United States. As a huge Black Sabbath fan, I spent a long time trying to get a hold of the full video of Sabbath's performance. They were not smart enough, like Purple or whoever on your management team, to get the rights like you guys did. But talk about being this young guy filled with talent and energy, and what that must have been like to saunter out onto that stage.
Well, you know, it was pretty hell on wheels, because I know you know this. That festival, this is the first festival in history before 74 where everything was running 80 minutes ahead of schedule. You know, Woodstock was the biggest cluster. You know, it was like the biggest nightmare. You know, there was people dropping off the gig. You know, Leslie West Mountain didn't make it. There's bands breaking up, and then here we are at Cal Jam, and everything's running quick. And our contract said we would appear at like 17 minutes past 7, which would have been sunset. You know, and of course this is like 20 to 6. And Richie locked himself in his trailer, and you know, I was dressed and ready to go. You know, I was just ready to go. You know, but no, Richie, no man, they had to break the door down, and they were going to, you know, arrest him for inciting a riot. And of course, that's when you walked on the stage and smashed the camera up, and there was a huge emotional debacle, a scenario that we've never seen on TV before. That wasn't punk rock. That was before punk rock. That was some angry dudes, you know, doing their thing. You know, this is well before, you know, the Sex Pistols were around. But yeah, it was a pretty rapid fire moment.
Oh, there's no question. And you're looking, I mean, the size, I could challenge anybody to dial that thing up on YouTube and not be impressed at the size of the crowd that you guys are working there, which is really just, it's a pretty massive.
350,000 people.
Yeah. No, dude, I was at Woodstock 94, and I can tell you it looked at least as big as that chaotic thing.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, one of the cool things about you, Glenn, is you actually, and you probably did it later too, but you ended up with Purple playing Hawaii in '75. You have memories of that?
Playing where?
When we're in Honolulu, Hawaii, and so I was.
Yeah, of course. It was the first show we did with Tommy, and yeah, of course, we stayed at the Hilton. We were there for 5 days. We rehearsed over there, and wow, yeah. I do remember it. Very, 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 very much so. I love Honolulu, and I've been to Hawaii numerous times since then. Oh, my God, how wonderful.
How many other times have you played here?
None. I've only played once.
Okay, that one time, and then the rest were vacations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a place that me and my wife like to go, and who doesn't like to go there? It's just, right. Obviously you live there, so you're used to it, but it's just so peaceful for me, and the smell and the ocean, and it's such a loving tropical vibe. It's in fact, I wrote the first Black Country album, the lyrics in Maui. Yeah, I wrote them all on the beach on the first Black Country album.
That's a cool connection right there. And since you mentioned them, a band that you have a new album due next year, and the band features the great Jason Bonham. He's been a guest a few times over the years. Love his playing. And always I play drums a little. His dad is my very, very favorite. He and Cozy.
Yes,
and
I hear you.
I was hoping you could kind of explain your relationship, how it goes with Jason. It really goes all the way back to his dad. Maybe you share some memories with Bonzo.
Well, Bonzo was my, well, he was the guy that found trapeze. He was the guy that was behind a lot of trapeze's early success. And John became my closest friend in 1971. So I knew Jason since he was a few years old, So, yeah, I mean, Jason, I had Jason on my knee, and bouncing him up and down. So I've known Jason since, like, he was a toddler. But John was very, very instrumental in helping my band, trapeze. And so I have a Bonham connection there. So, and because I've known him all his life, he's like, kind of like, I'm not like an uncle to him because we don't act like that, but we have a very big family connection there. So it's always great to play with Jason, and we're going in the studio in a couple of months to make the next album.
You make so many damn records, Glenn. It's unbelievable. I can't believe the creative juices that you tap into. And I couldn't not bring up the Sabbath connection. And when you talk about the long relationship that you had with John Bonham going back all the way to your trapeze days, did you have a similar sort of relationship with Iommi, which led to you eventually doing that?
So. I mean, I've known Tony. We opened for Sabbath in trapeze. It would have been, check this out, you're going to love this. It would be 46 years ago, 2 weeks ago. 46 years, because I saw the adverts on my Twitter. It was 46. It was 1970 at the Bullring Mayfair Suite at Birmingham, and the bill was Sabbath and Trapeze and another band, and that's when I met all of those guys. Because we're from the same part of the world, so I struck up a relationship with all of those guys. I mean, and all of them. I've got stories about all of them. So, with Tony, when I did the thing with him in the 80s, was the start of a 3-record set. So Tony's like a family member. I mean, I'm part of the family, and that those guys are like family members to me.
It's a cool family to be part of. Final question for you, Glenn, because it's another great story that I know people will like hearing about. You got to spend some very special time. A guy who also loved soul and funk. It was the mid-'70s. You ended up sharing a house with David Bowie.
Mm-hmm. He moved in at my house in the spring and the summer of '75. He was making Station to Station, and he was preparing for a movie role called Man Who Fell to Earth. David and I befriended each other in '74, the same week as I met Stevie Wonder. David was playing he was playing a week at Universal Amphitheater, and he was my neighbor at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and we ran into each other, and the funny thing was he'd seen California Jam, and he couldn't believe this white soul singer was playing in a rock band. So we had a lot of things in common, so, but we were pretty much inseparable for a couple of years. He was at my house all the time, and I got to watch the way he wrote and the way he continually changed, leading me to, he cut all my hair off and threw away half of my clothes. And it was a big influence on my preparation for the next. Then wherever was coming next, he was preparing me for it.
Amazing. Well, and I'm sure he's watching over you from where all of us are going next.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, he's a wonderfully talented dude. And Resonate is the new record. I could talk to you all day. I'm a huge fan, Glenn, have been for decades. And
thank you, brother.
You're welcome. You're welcome, my friend. And I hope you had fun talking today. I hope this was all right.
I did. I had a great time. Aloha. This is Glenn Hughes, right where you want to be, with my friend, Dave Lawrence.
Fantastic. Can't ask for more than that. And
you're welcome, brother.
I appreciate it, Glenn. Stay safe and stay healthy. I'm giving you a big hug. And I hope we can get you out to Hawaii sometime.
Thank you, bro. I'll be here. Thank you so much.
Take care. Aloha.
Aloha, bro.
Bye-bye.